In the summer of 1936, James Agee went to Alabama to write about cotton sharecroppers. He was on assignment for Fortune magazine. With him was photographer Walker Evans. Evans worked for the Farm Security Administration's unit that documented the Great Depression. This 1941 book resulted from their work. It was about 3 tenant farming families. Agee spent a month on Hobbs Hill, for a time living in the shack belonging to George and Annie Mae Gudger. The book is many things: a tome poem, a study of poverty, and some weird things too. Evans took this picture of the Gudger family. One of the odder parts of the book deals with this woman in the upper left of the picture. This is Emma, Annie Mae's sister, who was visiting and about to leave to go meet her husband, who was sharecropping in Mississippi. Agee wrote about flirting with Emma. In the book, he lamented Emma's departure as a form of death with a man she shouldn't be married to, and then he imagined, if only Emma could spend her last few days alive in bed with George, a kind of man she is best used to, and with Walker and me, whom she is curious about and attracted to. He then told about the drive to the train station. He and Emma sat next to each other in the sweltering car, bare arms touching, and how she relaxed her arm and thigh, rubbing against him as the car bounced along. Our bodies were very hot, he wrote. 50 years later, I found Emma. This is one thing she had to say about that part of Agee's book.
He must have been drunk when he wrote that book. I bet he was drunk. Now, I could say that, and I know I'm telling the truth. But that was wrong. And he should have done it. No matter how cute I thought he was.
In another interview, in which the audio is far worse quality than what you just heard, she told me, "Now, if I'd been there just another week, who knows what would have happened?" And then she laughed. She told me this 30 years ago, in 1985. I was in Alabama with photographer Michael S. Williamson. We spent 3 years in the mid-1980s documenting the fate of the families. We found places photographed by Evans and people such as Margaret Ricketts. That work became our 1989 book. It was intense, and I was obsessed with the project. I made family trees for each of the 3 families. In 1986, 12 of the original 22 family members were still alive. There were 116 offspring. Of all the people, though, Emma was most fascinating. In all my years of work, she ranks as one of the top 4 or 5 people I have ever met. Agee changed all the names, and we kept those names in our book. Emma's real name was Mary McCrae. I asked her to sign my work copy of the Agee Evans book. She's in this Walker Evans picture on the left. On my first visit to Emma's house 30 years ago, in 1985, she mentioned that she wrote down her life story in a date book back in 1975, the year her son died while working on a river barge. This, of course, interested me, so I asked, When you wrote down your life story, do you still have that, what you wrote? Then she went back into her bedroom. There was a sound of rustling. A noisy truck drove past. When she came out, she shrugged.
I don't know where it's at.
And then she laughed. I had the feeling she didn't want to give it to me. Time passed. I made many more visits to Emma's house, but never asked about the diary. Michael wanted to get a picture of the 3 of us, just for us. We went out to the swing in the front yard. Michael set up his camera on a tripod. Emma sat between us. It was August, a very hot day. The sun burned down on us. Michael took 3 or 4 pictures. He kept getting up to reset the camera. At one point, I asked Emma, "Did you ever find that diary?" She looked at me and she said, "I thought you forgot about that." I said, "Oh, I don't forget about something like that." She said, "I found it. It's in my drawer next to my umbrella." Michael looked up at the blue sky and the sun. "Looks like it's fixin' to rain." She laughed. And then she said, "I'll just sit here and get wet." And I thought to myself, there's no way she's gonna let us look at that diary. So she invited us back into the house and made us iced tea. Without saying anything, she went back into her bedroom and came out with this diary. I said, "Mind if we take it and make copy?" She said, "Of course." And so Michael and I left, and we went to a place called the Huddle House. They're all over Alabama. It's a little pancake house. And we sat and we read the entire 16,000 words. And at points we were crying like babies. It was so powerful. The diary is amazing. Agee and Evans only merit one sentence in it. She wrote about the visit to her sister and brother-in-law. "So I went to stay a week with her before I left, and that is when I met them two men that has wrote books about us and of the South." And Emma tells about the hardships of her life as a cotton tenant farmer. Here she wrote about how things were so hard she couldn't go to school. She wrote, "And I didn't become that nurse I wanted so bad to be. We just worked hard from year to year." What I'm reading here doesn't do justice to what's in her diary. Much of it is stark poetry. It's too long to fit in this video. It makes up a significant portion of our book. She gave us permission to use the diary. I've always wondered, did she write that diary with the idea in mind that someday she'd give it to a writer who might come back? I'll never know. It's now 30 years since Michael and I first met Emma. I went looking through my files recently and decided to make this video. We won the Pulitzer Prize in nonfiction for our book in 1990. That wouldn't have happened if people like Emma didn't share her life with us. I really feel the sharecroppers Agee first visited in 1936 and their children were the real winners of that prize.